Hi. Since 2020, the Castle Museum of Saginaw County History, of all places, has been publishing weekly, I think weekly, historic Saginaw recipes on its Facebook page. Today, we talked to two of the cooks who test all of them, and they are
molding specialist.
Right, Tom Trombley and Katie Ellison. How many would you guess over those years you have published?
So I actually had to go back and look and see, and it looks like almost 200, about 193.
Okay, so it's not necessarily every day, correct?
It's every week.
Every week, sorry. Yep. And tell me the source, where do they come from?
Well, originally the source was the wonderful cookbook, Savoring Saginaw, that Gene Beach and Pat Shuck did. But we've gone through a good proportion of those. And for the last few years, we've been delving all types of sources, cookbooks, newspaper articles. Did you know there was a weekly contest in the 1930s? Restaurants. Sometimes we've even tried to backtrack and recreate. We find a couple of times have found somebody who worked in a kitchen someplace who gave us some guts to a now vanished kitchen, who gave us some hints. So no source is off the table, is it?
No.
And then along with the recipe, how do you explain the historical part?
It's really the reason for the recipe. The recipe isn't, the recipe is the easy part usually. Although we get to some of those that we need.
Sometimes it's hard to find a recipe that connects to history, but.
Yeah,
I don't know. When we started out, we were doing the recipe and then we had to find the history. Since we've become more historian, since it's kind of moved departments, we go the other way. I find the story and then I find a recipe. And it really was, I really need to say it was Deanna Coleman, our facility, who really came up with it. Because everybody during the pandemic, we made a decision to keep them, what we could and engage the community. And Deanna came up with the idea of making a recipe from the Savoring Saginaw cookbook. And then we started building from there. So it's really a team effort. Although sometimes doing dishes isn't a team effort.
Oh, no.
What would you say the oldest one is off the top of your head? How far back does
I think we have some, there are certainly some that are based in things, but our cookbook collection, we inherited or preserved Gene Beach's Saginaw cookbook collection, which we've added to. There are definitely books from the 1890s. I think the 1890s is the earliest, but many of the recipes probably go back to the 1860s, and some of them have an earlier history to them. So, like all things, everyone takes credit. I was going to make one of my grandmother's recipes and then discovered that I found it in 3 other cookbooks, the Costco United Methodist Church cookbook, but then I found that an aunt of hers had it in the Saginaw cookbook by the First Congregational Church, and I swear I've seen it in a 3rd place. So my grandmother's recipe for rocks is not original, which I never thought it was.
Oh, shoot. Well, have you ever picked one and it's so old the ingredients don't exist?
Yeah, and sometimes the ingredients.
Perhaps you'd like to talk about the French dressing.
Well, the French dressing one is a whole world to itself, and that's actually a good one. There's French dressing. A lot of recipes will simply say to use French dressing, and so everybody thinks, "Oh, I'll buy some Kraft and dump it on it." Until the 1950s, that is not French dressing. French dressing is what we would call a vinaigrette. And so it is not at all the same thing. And there actually is, and I didn't prep adequately. There is actually a standard for French dressing now for the red stuff that I had in my salad last night. But it's actually vinaigrette. So if a recipe calls for using French dressing, you're not going to end up with the same thing if you put red French stuff on it. Then there's things like cones of sugar, which now actually I did find at Myers. I needed it for Mrs. Russ blackberry cordial. And
Well, I think sometimes too, like a recipe in itself might lead to more research on like when was, mayonnaise widely available in stores versus having to make it at home.
That's our earth-shattering piece we're going to do later
Or
this
something
summer.
like that. When
Yeah.
were things widely available, like manufactured
But
wise?
there be some recipes that have lard in them, and we just don't use.
Yeah,
lard.
I did. And the one that caused me no end of problems was the Wolfarth plum pudding, or Christmas pudding. I can't remember the correct title,
Doesn't that
but
have suet in it?
that had suet.
Yeah.
Do it.
And I discovered, well, I chopped the suet, and it almost ruined my Christmas holiday. And it discovered you can have a butcher grind it for you, which is a lot less suet content than I would need.
Right.
And it is interesting. I mean, I'm old enough, Catherine, Katie, maybe not me, but I mean, I recognize the taste of lard in a cookie, because it was once a common thing. And, I try to always use the ingredient if it's available. And it is.
And if it isn't, what do you do? Well, we're getting a little burp. Hope it'll come back. You've frozen. Can you hear me at all?
The mouse pad.
Sorry.
So
Okay,
far,
you were
so.
gone for a bit. So what?
Can you hear us, Janet?
Yes, can you hear me? Oh, darn it, you guys are freezing. I don't know what to do. This has never happened. I've got a strong signal where I am.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
We have a strong
So do we.
CD.
I don't know why you're burping.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, anyway, let's hope it continues. Have you ever, is there ever been a time when you simply didn't find anything remotely suitable to substitute? Darn. Hello?
you're frozen on our end, Janet.
Huh? You're frozen.
Hello, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear us, Janet?
Yes, can you hear me? I don't know what to do. I've never had this happen.
We
Move your device just a little bit. Are you back? I don't know.
Maybe. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us
Yeah.
okay?
I don't know whether to start over, but let's just hope people stick with us. So anyway, I think we were discussing what do you do if you simply can't find anything close?
What we do, I do research and then substitute. And very honestly, I mean, if somebody's trying to make it, I let them know. You know, the other corollary to this is sometimes you don't know what you're going to end up with, and it's
Mhm.
important to know in
Yeah.
advance. One of the first recipes I made when Jean and Pat's cookbook was first published, I did a tour based on the cookbook. I think did 5 sites, and I made Mrs. Hill's cottage pudding. And I didn't really know what cottage pudding
Right. What
was.
was that going to end up like?
But what? And fortunately, my cousin from Pennsylvania was here, and she said, "Oh, that's just a white cake." Because I would have thought I had an absolute failure. And then there was the story of Mrs. Boyd's consomme, um, which in short, and I would encourage everyone to go to the website and bring that one up,
Yes.
because you cook a whole chicken. I think it's for 8 hours. You boil it. I cheated and did 6 hours. And then you deglaze and I wasn't as impeccable with that as I should have been, because I did have a little fat, and that's the whole secret of a perfect consomme. Then you recook it again, creating, and I'm not making this term up, a raft. And a raft is made of egg white, raw chopped chicken. The health department would not like this recipe.
Oh,
And then, and it's a cinnamon stick, and it was an exact number of cloves, like 8 cloves, not 7, not 9. And if somebody goes to I may have this a little thing. And so then you boil it again. And most recipes for consomme call for the raft to rise to the surface. Mrs. Morley's consomme has a sinking raft, which is really nice. But the problem is that you're then left with the burned on raft to the bottom of the pan. And it actually was amazingly transparent. I should have had, and really very elegant. And it was very good. But what I didn't realize was, when you've done this, you've created something that is Katie's favorite thing. We move into the molded gelatin and aspic level, because the next day I carefully refrigerated 2 cups of consomme had come into a perfect aspect. That opens it up to the molded salad history.
Molded salad. Well,
have you ever had an absolute epic fail that just tasted horrible and you didn't know if it was the recipe or what you did?
I mean, I don't think it's fair to necessarily say that some of these recipes are horrible. I think people had different tastes at different points in time, you know.
Right.
A lot of the recipes.
That's what I was thinking.
A lot of the people had cooks that were
Well,
judged by
right.
their ability to
That is true.
assemble these ingredients.
But yeah,
And-
one time, speaking of molded salads, I made some Cold War era, like those Jello salads with like olives and pineapple and a bunch of strange sort of savory and sweet ingredients. And I would say it was quite disgusting to try. But I could also kind of see like the sweet and salty, like the vibe they were going for, you know. But it isn't something we would eat today, right?
Right. That's what I guess. So is it just you, when you are cooking the recipe, is it just you that tests it, or do you bring it into the office? Do you get different opinions?
It depends what it is, I think. If it's
Okay.
something we can bring in, a lot of times we will bring in the leftovers, but like I'm not going to haul Jello in here.
And a lot of times, I mean, it all goes towards the photo op.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's over. You know, one of the more interesting recipes that I had was Mrs. Lord's olive and cantaloupe salad.
Oh,
Oh, God.
which was not, it was the French dressing on the lime juice. You could either use French dressing or lime juice. And I drenched it in lime juice as she called for, but then I realized that was a photo op mistake because it looked like I had it. So it was, yeah, and the French dressing would have actually mediated in a different way the saltiness and sweetness of the melon, and I think would have actually been very, very good.
So did you think you'll continue doing this? It sounds like you saved them too, so people can go back and look.
Yeah, so they're all on our blog on the Castle Museum website, so castlemuseum.org. And so they're on there for the last years and years, so you can go back as far as you want. And so far, we plan to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Do you get many comments from readers or suggestions?
Yeah, we don't get too many comments on our blog itself, but certainly when we post things on social media, especially if it's about a place or a person that was popular that people remember, you'll get a lot of comments. Or if it's a restaurant, we get those people that used to work there that will comment.
And sometimes we'll hit a family member we'll recognize. That happened with the Lord family, and we ended up with a letter that was wonderful. It's it described Mrs. Lord's description of having dining next to Eleanor Roosevelt when she was in Saginaw. So sometimes it really opens up really a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely.
And we can't always predict which ones are going to be really popular.
No, sometimes you think something's great and nobody else does.
Can you think of, and I'm putting you on the spot here the most, and I don't know what I mean by the word complicated, but the most complicated one and why it was complicated?
Well, there's always the lamb cake.
You did the lamb cake.
I made an Easter lamb cake. I used Tom's vintage lamb cake mold. And I decorated it, and it was not a complete train wreck. Some of those online, that's kind of the thing lately is that, the ears fall off and the ears droop or they just look hideous. But it just took time and patience to do.
Probably for me, one of the most difficult one was actually the Wolfarth plum pudding. First of all, it was a recipe that was designed for a commercial bakery, so you had to downsize the recipe to start with. And then I think it's 6 hours of steaming, which is a long commitment. And then when you get done, you have to unmold it. And I could not get that plum pudding out. I've since learned, and I watched afterwards. I watched Marion Barry unmold her Christmas pudding, and I understand a little more where I had a problem. But I had some fresh holly, and I presented it, and nobody knew that on the back side there was a really not so elegant that wooden thing. Another one that was really difficult was Mrs. Heavenrich's. It's a cake that uses cracker meal, and those crackers were rolling. Those crackers was exhausting. Then there was the Schust date roll. That thing was so messy to make. It went off my cooking. I lost like 8 inches of it on my cooking island. It went on the floor. So I mean, sometimes there's somebody to clean up. And I will say that some of we'll leave all names out of it, but some of the ones that are in, there's a book called 12 Menus that was done for the hospital. It was society menus, a meal, and those are always complicated. And there, you can tell some of the people who submitted recipes, when you search for their name, you discover they're constantly looking for a new cook.
And that would be why.
Because and I do love that Mrs. Boyd, who was George Morley's daughter, got a little plug-in from her homemade mayonnaise, because she did point out that you might use one of those new mayonnaise mixers that have just become apparent, which I'm certain we don't have that Morley Brothers catalog, but I'm certain she had the cutting-edge mayonnaise mixer in her kitchen.
How much time would you guess then each of you would spend doing the research for the historical side, buying the ingredients and doing this. This sounds really time intensive.
I don't do a time study
Yeah.
on that.
I don't
It
know.
varies.
I mean, the history part of it could take a while
Yeah.
to really figure out all the details and what you want to talk about. And then the recipe, depending on what type of recipe it is, might take, a few hours. It might take days if it's something that has to set like a jello mold.
Or it has to steam for
Or has to
30
steam
days.
for-
Are you ever considering doing a cookbook of these?
Well, there is a Saginaw
Yeah,
cookbook, but we
so,
have,
we actually put together a few of them, to go along with our exhibit, and we're here in Centennial Hall, with our Changing Taste exhibit.
Right.
And so some of the recipes, from I think it was the 1950s was the first book we did. And they're just small cookbooks, but they're available on our swag shop.
Oh, okay.
And they have a little bit of the history from the blog post and then the recipe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That in itself would be fun. So, anything else you can think of? And I hope people have held on through our glitches. Anything else you have can think of? A really wild story?
A really wild
so-
story. I mean, there's always the Doyle hamburger.
the Doyle hamburger, discovering the first arrival of pizza in Saginaw.
That's right,
And that was
yeah.
really great.
Mhm.
We connected with the community on that one so well because actually Marge's Marge's Spaghetti House, which would be under the expressway today, the family shared photos on our page of it. And it literally was a home
house.
and a restaurant. And it's just really fun to see. And also you really realize how different the world was. I mean, like a big boy on the first floor of the Second National Bank building, how do you get the ventilation out of there?
You don't wanna know.
We do want to know.
All right. Well, this has been fun. I'm sorry for the technological problems. That's modern day life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So thank you for your time.
Thank you,
And
Janet.
I just want to say, if anybody out there has any cookbooks from the Saginaw area that maybe we don't have in our collection, feel free to contact us.
There's probably more than when you said, what's her name? Jean Beach. How many does she have?
I think we have like 30 from her. Yeah, and I'm just guessing. I don't have, I'm
No,
not at my desk to check the catalog records. And we've added to that, and there's,
all Saginaw based?
we Saginaw ones.
Wow.
And there's a whole, we know there's more out there and that there's churches that are not. Churches have a tradition of publishing cookbooks
Mhm.
and.
Lots
in
of organizations and churches
Yeah.
published one, so.
And we really would love more diversity and to represent the whole county and the whole community. So bring us your cookbooks.
Okay. All right. I think that will do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.